James Parkinson, the author of Soldier Slaves, about America's World War II Bataan survivors, will speak to us momentarily. He served as the attorney for the survivors of the infamous Bataan Death March in 1942 and others who were used as slave labor by Japanese corporations. He authored Soldier Slaves, which documented the struggle for justice, compensation, and how the nation's Congress, courts, and the administration abandoned them as it went to war in Iraq. Jim and his legal colleagues fought for 6 years without ever being paid, and to quote Jim, "As long as I have a voice to tell their story, I will." Mr. Parkinson's tours the country to tell the story of the battling bastards of Bataan, to ensure our nation does not forget their unique sacrifice and service in World War II. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed an honor, my pleasure, to introduce to you James Parkinson.
I've had an opportunity to speak to many people, from New York City to the D-Day Museum to the Fredericksburg Museum in Texas. I've been with wonderful people in high office, but I have never been so touched as I was a few moments ago by Mr. Palmer. When my host, Bill Evans, picked me up this morning and took me to breakfast, and I saw the rain coming down that welcomed summer here in Montana, I was concerned that I'd only be speaking to the congressman and the senator this afternoon. And when Bill drove me over here, I said, I'll be surprised if anybody's even here. Well, let me tell you the message I'm taking back to California. If you want to know about the patriotism of people in Montana, it's going to take a little bit more than a cold rain to stop them from coming and paying their due and their respect to the great American soldiers who have gone before us and made that ultimate sacrifice. And for me to be here, I am humble and I am honored to share this moment with you. When I came in, I had an opportunity to go to this row in front and shake a couple of hands, and as I was talking to them, and I realized that they were the age of my father, who served proudly in World War II in the Philippines, who came home and became a country doctor, and then later served as a brigadier general in the California National Guard. I felt humbled again and enormously blessed that I had a father who served my country. But I remembered as I was looking at these wonderful people today what happened to me when I was 5 years old, living in student housing at Tulane University in New Orleans, where my daddy was going to medical school. My brother Ricky and I were sitting in front of a blank television, waiting for Howdy Doody to come on. And the screen was blank, and then all of a sudden it cleared up, and the American flag appeared on the screen. And the national anthem began. And my brother Ricky and I sat there until my daddy came in the room. And he said, "Boys, rise to your feet. Put your hand on your heart." And we did. And then as I grew older, I thought I really understood why my daddy had me do that. I travel a lot. I was in Dubai Super Bowl Sunday. The Super Bowl started at 3 o'clock in the morning. And as I was lying in bed, about ready to watch the Super Bowl, the national anthem started. I was alone. I remembered my father and his sacrifice and yours. I got out of bed. I stood up straight, put my hand on my heart, and I quietly wept because I was in a foreign country and I was remembering home. I didn't really understand the emotion when I was 5 years old, I didn't understand it when I was in Dubai, but Mr. Palmer, I understood it today. I will never be around another veteran. I will never speak to another group when the name Nicholas Palmer doesn't come to my mind and I hear the voice of a father. And I think about the Gold families all over America. And I think what an honor it is to be here with you, to feel the fellowship of the fallen. If I can, I'd just like to take a few moments and have you go back in history with me. Let's go back to December 7th, 1941, the day that Franklin Roosevelt said would live in infamy. Everybody within the sound of my voice knows exactly what happened on that day. There was a sneak attack on the Hawaiian Islands. The Japanese came. For 2 hours they bombed Pearl Harbor, and then they left. The story you might not know is that same day in the Philippine Islands the Japanese attacked. We had General Douglas MacArthur there. But unlike Hawaii, they didn't attack and leave, they attacked and they landed. They landed with about 100,000 troops, and a horrendous battle was waged until April the 9th, 1942. It was on that day in history that we had the largest surrender of American troops. 10,000 American soldiers were surrendered, and about 70,000 Filipinos were surrendered. Japanese didn't know what to do with them. They surrendered in Mariveles. They had to get to Camp O'Donnell, about 84 miles. So the Japanese, under General Homma, said, we'll march it. April, the Philippine Islands, is 100 degrees and 100% humidity. The Japanese had the code of Bushido, which means you never surrender. If you surrender, you're a coward, you're a dog, and your name will be blotted from the records in Japan. So when the American soldiers were surrendered by their leaders, they were treated not as fellow comrades, but as dogs and cowards. They were lined up and they were marched. They were not given food, they were given inadequate water. If they stumbled, they were bayoneted. If their friend stumbled and they went to take care of the friend, they were both bayoneted. I talked to a survivor who told me the worst thing he ever saw was when they're on that march, a man stumbled, and the Japanese soldiers came up and he said, bury that man. He said, how can I bury him? He's still alive. He said, I said, bury him. And when he hesitated, he shot him. And then he got other soldiers to bury that man alive. To really understand the enormity of what happened in Bataan and that Bataan Death March, I want you to do some arithmetic. If you divide the number of American soldiers and Filipino soldiers into the number of miles, the 84 that they marched in 4 to 6 days, depending on when they joined the march, you had a dead body every 32 feet for 84 miles.